Here is Immortal Moments for explanation. Friends, like videos and subscribes to our channel. Martial Universe Season 10 Part 51 Explanation. So let's start our explanation. Seated on a stone platform, a young man slowly opened his eyes. His pitch-black pupils were as deep as the night sky. Meanwhile, there was faint reincarnation will flowing deep within his eyes. At the same time, indescribable ripples were being emitted and they seemingly formed an extremely profound scene at his back. When he first opened his eyes, he had yet to fully awaken. It was a moment later, before he finally regained clarity in his sight. As he looked at the dust covering his body, he gently smiled. After which, he jerked his body. Immediately, luster flickered over those dust, before they all rose up. They looked just like tens of thousands of glowing spots, and it was an extremely dazzling sight. Congratulations. A somewhat gentle voice was transmitted from beside him. Lin Dong lifted his head before he saw an attractive and delicate figure. Meanwhile, a silver long hair came pouring down like a river, and she looked extremely dazzling. At this moment, Xuan Ling had a calm expression on her pretty face. Meanwhile, ripples were emitted from within her eyes, causing her to appear extremely alluring. Moreover, there was also reincarnation will, similar to that of Lin Dong, flowing within her eyes. Clearly, she had gained just as much as Lin Dong did, from this inheritance. Thank you for your help, Miss Xuan Ling. Lin Dong thanked her sincerely. After all, he knew that he was only able to gain the reincarnation will because he had Xuan Ling's protection. Otherwise, he would have likely gotten lost in that deep and profound reincarnation will, with no means of escape. I was also helping myself. Xuan Ling shook her head gently and spoke in an indifferent tone. Perhaps it was because her strength had soared, that the stifling pressure she felt from the devouring ancestral symbol within Lin Dong's body had diminished significantly. As of now, her expression returned to the icy cold one that she had when she first saw Lin Dong. Lin Dong smiled as he stared at Xuan Ling's pretty face with his black pupils. After which, his eyes shifted towards her alluring red lips. There seemed to be a faint trace of blood over there. A glint flashed across Xuan Ling's pretty eyes after she detected where Lin Dong was looking at. However, as though she did not want to admit defeat in front of him, she stubbornly lifted her head and stared right back at him. However, this face-off did not last for long. Soon after, she gently clenched her jade-like hands. For some unknown reason, even though the stifling pressure she felt from the devouring ancestral symbol had diminished significantly, she was still unable to look for long into the eyes of that man who was standing in front of her. Her pretty face appeared to have become slightly hot. Turned her head away, she dodged Lin Dong's eyes and said, "You promised, ancestor, that you would not use the devouring ancestral symbol to pressure me." Her voice remained indifferent, but it was a little gentler than before. "I did not use the devouring ancestral symbol." Lin Dong was a little bewildered as he replied. Things were still fine if he did not said anything. When he uttered those words, however, Xuan Ling's face involuntarily reddened further. She gently clenched her teeth before she viciously glared at Lin Dong. After which, she hurriedly changed the topic. "Why are you celebrating now? The inheritance is only half done." "Half done?" Lin Dong was a little startled. "We have understood the reincarnation will. However, your strength is likely still at the advanced profound death stage, am I right?" Xuan Ling asked. Lin Dong probed the interior of his body upon hearing this. Following which, he frowned. Indeed, the Yuan power within his body had hardly made any improvements. Understanding the reincarnation will should be the first step. We might have accomplished it, but our physical body's cultivation is still miles away from that level. Xuan Ling also frowned and said, "What should we do next?" Lin Dong asked. Xuan Ling's pretty eyes were filled with doubts. As she stared at the seemingly endless reincarnation ocean, she shook her head and said, "Could it be that we have to train in there?" With a grave expression on his face, Lin Dong slowly walked to the edge of the stone platform, before he lowered his head to look at that brilliant reincarnation ocean. It was a long while later before he muttered, "Since this place contains the devouring master's entire body of work about cultivation, in order to obtain his powers, perhaps His eyes stared at the vast and mighty ocean when he spoke until this point. Are you saying that we need to enter this ocean? A tinge of shock flashed across Xuan Ling's eyes. The reincarnation ocean was filled with vast and mighty strength. Previously, the reincarnation wall that they came into contact with on the outside were already extremely difficult to deal with. Would they be able to survive if they entered the reincarnation ocean? Lin Dong was quiet for a moment. He smiled faintly and said, Miss Xuan Ling, how can we possibly understand reincarnation if we allow ourselves to be bogged down by death? You are truly a bold individual. Xuan Ling sighed softly. There was a hint of admiration in her words. Lin Dong laughed. After which, he extended his hand towards Xuan Ling and said, Miss Xuan Ling, may I know if you are willing to accompany me on this treacherous adventure? When she saw that extended hand, Xuan Ling gently clenched her teeth. Moments later, she extended her hand and grabbed his hand. You are simply too cunning. It's obvious that you only want me to follow you in order to protect yourself. Lin Dong did not feel the least bit embarrassed after Xuan Ling voiced his intentions. As he held her small jade-like hand, he inhaled a deep breath of air before his expression gradually became solemn. Miss Xuan Ling, let's go. Xuan Ling nodded gently. After which, the both of them exchanged glances with each other, before they took a step forward simultaneously. With a loud splash, sea water splashed after two figures directly leapt into that vast and endless reincarnation ocean. Buzz buzz. After they fell into the ocean, the both of them immediately felt mighty and endless energy sweeping towards them from all directions. After which, they charged into their bodies in an extremely overbearing fashion. Up against that overbearing assault, despite Lin Dong's sturdy physical body, he still found it difficult to endure. His body tensed up, while the veins on his body pulsed. Meanwhile, traces of blood climbed into his eyes, while the medians across his body swelled to their limits. It looked as though they were about to burst apart. However, in contrast to Lin Dong's pained expression, the expression on Xuan Ling's face was an exceptionally calm one. In fact, there wasn't even the slightest bit of pain. Instead, it seemed as if she was reveling in that sensation. A moan filled with extreme pain was quietly transmitted into Xuan Ling's ears. Only then did she finally open her tightly shut eyes. After which, she saw that Lin Dong had curled up into a ball due to the overwhelming pain. Xuan Ling was unable to speak in the water. However, a look of anxiety flashed across her pretty face. A moment later, she finally sighed helplessly before she used her fingernails to slit her smooth jade-like wrist. Immediately, bright red blood began to spread. Those fresh blood entwined around the both of them. Upon closer inspection, one would be able to spot traces of faint black glowing lines within the blood. Xuan Ling extended her arms and hugged that man, who had curled up. Meanwhile, blood continuously flowed from her wrist, causing her face to become slightly pale. Viscous blood began to gather. Finally, they transformed into a 10-feet-long blood cocoon, which wrapped around the both of them. That blood cocoon gradually headed towards the deepest part of the reincarnation ocean. Surrounding them were waves of incomparably powerful energy like pillars. However, all of them were sucked into that blood cocoon, just like a whale sucking in water. The entire reincarnation ocean began to churn at this moment. The two auras within the blood cocoon became increasingly powerful as energy continuously poured in. After which, the various hindrances were easily broken through. Time passed by stealthily. Unknowingly, they had already been in the shattered space for more than 2 months. Meanwhile, over this period of time, the demon region had also erupted into an uproar because of an incident that occurred here. The source of the commotion originated from the Yimo, who had showed up back then. For Yimo kings and a 10th seat king, who was even stronger than an ordinary Yimo king. This lineup was sufficient to astound any faction in the demon region. There were many powerful individuals hidden in the demon region. Besides a few well-known factions, some of the other factions, which deliberately kept a low profile, could not be underestimated as well. After all, they had a long history and a solid foundation. In fact, some of them had even existed since the ancient times. Therefore, they also had some understanding of the Yimo. In the past, the Yimo remained in hiding and very few people were able to obtain any information about them. However, such a terrifying Yimo lineup had appeared this time around, and this caused many factions to be alarmed. After all, everyone knew about the frightening consequences caused by the ancient world war. Just how many lives would be lost if it happened again? With these thoughts in mind, the demon region erupted into an uproar on the surface. However, many large factions began to secretly dispatch spies in order to hunt for any clues left by the Yimo. For a while, many undercurrents were flowing in this place. Beast War region, Four Titans Palace. Currently, the Four Titans Palace's reputation in the demon region was growing day after day. Ever since the day where the Yimo appeared in the shattered space, the relationship between the celestial demon Martin tribe, Dragon tribe, and the Four Titans Palace was clearly established. Moreover, there was also some information from an unknown source that stated that the first commander of the Four Titans Palace had obtained the inheritance of the Devouring Master. Therefore, this caused the Four Titans Palace to become a rising star in the demon region, which could not be underestimated. Subsequently, many experts began to flock to them, further bolstering the Four Titans Palace. There were many people seated in the old Deep Lightning Mountain Palace, now called the Four Titans Palace. Amongst all the seated figures, their leader was currently Little Martin. During this period of time, Little Flame went into a seclusion in an attempt to advance to the Samsara stage. Hence, Little Martin decided to stay behind in the Four Titans Palace. Owing to his relationship with Lindong and his actual status, no one objected the decision to temporarily hand control of the Four Titans Palace over to him. In fact, even the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander trio and the rest did not object. In the palace, seated below Little Martin, were the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, Golden Ape Demon Commander, Ji Yi, and the rest. Their auras seemed completely different compared to 2 months ago. In fact, their surging auras vaguely contained a faint ripple of reincarnation. Although it was a faint ripple that could hardly be felt, it still meant that they had touched reincarnation. Just this slight improvement made a vast difference. Meanwhile, there were actually some new faces seated behind them, and these people had exceptionally powerful auras as well. Hence, in terms of size or strength, the old Four Titans Palace could hardly hold a candle to its present self. Little Martin was seated right at the front. As he listened to the information delivered to him by various individuals, he gently nodded his head. After all, he was the tribe leader successor of the celestial demon Martin tribe. Therefore, he was a lot more adept at handling these matters compared to Lindong. Hence, no one doubted his abilities. Second Commander, is there still no news about the First Commander? The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander suddenly asked after they finished reporting these matters. There had been no news about Lindong for more than 2 months, and they did not know how he was doing. Little Martin shook his head and said in a faint voice, "Everyone, there is no need to worry. Although the Devouring Master's inheritance is powerful, Lindong is no ordinary individual. He'll definitely be fine." "That's right. Second Commander, the First Commander previously instructed us to check up on the Eastern Xian region. We have finally received some news now," the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander suddenly said. "Oh." Little Martin suddenly stood up. Immediately, his handsome face turned stern as he said, "Speak. It seems like a war has broken out in the Eastern Xian region, and only 3 out of the 7 great super sects remain standing. Moreover, the one who started the war is also the faction that was once mentioned by great leader Yuan Gate. Time was like sand in an hourglass. Another half a month passed in the blink of an eye. At the extreme north of Demon region was a wasteland where strong winds blew. Ever since the damaged domain had disappeared, this region had once again regained its previous desolate atmosphere. The bustling scenes from several months before was now nowhere to be seen. Wind howled. Immense storms were like giant divine pythons that devastated this land. Under such berserk power, even space itself gradually started to twist and distort. No one knew how long such devastation continued. Suddenly, space slowly started to split open at the deepest part of the wastelands. As it slowly split open, a boundless aura that could not be described suddenly swept forth. As the boundless aura spread, 2 figures slowly stepped out from the now broken space and appeared in the wastelands. "We're finally out," The two who had walked out gazed upon the familiar scenery before them. Smiles of being relieved of a great burden appeared on their faces. Although the environment here was terrible, it gave them an exceptionally intimate feeling. These two were naturally Lindong and Xuan Ling, who had accepted the Devouring Master's inheritance. After almost 3 months, they had finally successfully completed the inheritance process and left the reincarnation ocean. At this very moment, this duo had completely withdrawn their auras, and gave off a plain and simple presence. Only those more perceptive individuals would be able to sense the astonishing sharpness hidden under that plain appearance. In a short 3 months, the transformation the duo had undergone was practically akin to a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. Lindong pushed apart his arms and deeply breathed in a mouthful of ice-cold air. Although it had only been 3 months, he felt as if he was reborn. The current him could feel that vast and endless Yuan power within his body. Its level had already truly broken through the profound death stage and advanced to the samsara stage. Most importantly, he was no ordinary samsara stage practitioner, but one who had touched reincarnation. Within the Devouring Master's inheritance was not only his entire life's cultivation, but most importantly, his comprehension of reincarnation. Even though the current Lindong was unable to completely understand it, it was enough to give him a head start of sorts in comparison to others at the samsara stage. With respect to the comprehension of reincarnation, Lindong believed that even great elder Xu Li and Liu Qing could not longer compare to himself. Lindong was now truly amongst the ranks of the world's pinnacle experts. By relying on his samsara stage power that had touched reincarnation, his initial symbol Grandmaster mental energy, the two great ancestor symbols in his body and his numerous divine objects, Lindong believed that it will be difficult for even a true reincarnation stage expert to hurt him. Lindong's fists were tightly clenched while his heart seemed to surge. The samsara stage. He had finally reached this once unreachable realm. For this, he had worked so hard over the years. Unfortunately, his efforts had finally been reciprocated. Miss Xuan Ling, I am planning on returning to the Four Titans Palace. What about you? Lindong tilted his head and gazed at the silver-haired lady as he gently smiled and said. Xuan Ling hesitated for a while before replying, I am returning to Kunpeng tribe. I've received ancestors' inheritance and need to notify them. Since that is so, let us part ways here. I am indebted to you for your protection in the inheritance process. If you have any use for me in future, I will stake my life to repay this debt. Lindong cupped his fist and earnestly declared. He had already forgotten how many times he had brushed against death while accepting the Devouring Master's inheritance. It was only with Xuan Ling's protection that he was able to successfully complete the process. Upon hearing this, Xuan Ling's beautiful eyes drooped slightly as if she was a little unhappy. However, she very quickly smiled and nodded her head. With a wave of her jade-like hand, black light flashed and transformed into a shadow grasping a long black blade. It was the unreasonably powerful sky-devouring corpse that had guarded the divine devouring palace back then. You should recognize this, right? Xuan Ling said. The sky-devouring corpse, I never expected that it had landed in your hands. Lindong nodded his head while he sized the sky-devouring corpse. He had personally experienced how formidable it was. This is the last sky-devouring corpse created by Ancestor. It had become so powerful because it had absorbed Ancestor's power. Xuan Ling faintly smiled before she continued, I am giving it to you. You should need it more than I do. Giving it to me? Lindong was taken aback. You should be returning to the Eastern Xian region. You have a vengeance to fulfill there, and blood will definitely rain when you return. With it, you will be much safer. Xuan Ling said. How do you know about my matters in the Eastern Xian region? Lindong's face was full of astonishment. You've forgotten? Our mental energy had fused together in the inheritance process, thus, I had a glimpse of your past. Xuan Ling blinked and said in a sly manner. Lindong's face reddened. Would that not mean that Xuan Ling had peeked at all of his secrets? I normally stay within the tribe and am unlikely to encounter any trouble. Therefore, you need this sky-devouring corpse more than I do. I believe that a great man like yourself will not reject, no. Xuan Ling said. Thank you, Miss Xuan Ling. Lindong's lips moved, but in the end, he sighed. Although things were very different now, the Yuan Gate also seemed to be a little strange. If his guess was not wrong, the Yuan Gate was connected to the Yimo. If he intended to return to the Eastern Xian region for revenge, having a little more power in his hands would definitely be a greater insurance. We've after all overcome trials and tribulations together, must you really address me in such a distant manner? Xuan Ling glanced at Lindong and softly said. Lindong was stunned. After some hesitation, he smiled and replied, then I'll have to pray that you do not find offense when I call you Linger. Xuan Ling's pretty face slightly reddened. Her initial cool and elegant manner was now gone. Her red lips moved as she said, then I'll be leaving first. I hope that we will still be able to meet in future. Her words faded, and she did not linger for a moment longer. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the space around her distorted. Soon after, she stepped into the distorted space. However, the sharp tips of her lovely ears appeared a little red when she entered. Lindong appeared disappointed and frustrated as he gazed at the distorted space. It was a long while later before he shook his head and suppressed the feelings in his heart. With a wave of his sleeve, he kept the sky-devouring corpse. It's time to go. He looked once again at the depths of the wastelands before heartily laughing at the sky. His figure moved and directly transformed into a flash of light that charged against the incomparably berserk windstorms in an extremely barbaric manner. This time, the powerful windstorms that had once caused Lindong much misery were now not the least bit of a hindrance to him. He cut through them like a hot knife through butter, and in a short dozen minutes, he appeared outside the wastelands. After getting his bearings, his figure once again disappeared. After Lindong left the extreme north region, he tirelessly traveled towards Beast War region. As his strength soared, his speed was naturally incomparable to before. Thus, after half a day of scenery, he had already reached Beast War region's border. Subsequently, Deep Lightning Mountain entered his sights a dozen minutes later. We respectfully welcome the great leader. Lindong did not conceal his presence when he entered Deep Lightning Mountain. Hence, such a disturbance was immediately detected by numerous Four Titans Palace experts. Waves of whooshing wind noises could be heard as numerous figures appeared in a flash, before they respectfully greeted in unison. Lindong appeared from the sky and gazed upon these Four Titans Palace experts as he smiled a little and nodded. Soon after, he lifted his gaze and saw the figures of Little Martin and the rest in front of the Great Hall on the main mountain. Immediately, his figure moved and he appeared before the Great Hall. Congratulations, great leader. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander, Golden Ape Demon Commander and the rest were startled when they saw Lindong appear. They could sense an astonishing pressure from the current Lindong's body as they hastily greeted him in a respectful manner and welcomed him. Looks like everyone has benefited this time. Lindong's gaze turned, seeing the faint reincarnation ripples from the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest's bodies. Evidently, the gift bestowed onto them by the Devouring Master had greatly benefited them. The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest chuckled. The joy within their eyes could not be concealed. You've returned at last. Little Martin's eyes also paused on Lindong's body. Soon after, he laughed and said, as expected of the Devouring Master's inheritance. From what I can see, just your Yuan power cultivation alone is not weaker than my own. Lindong chuckled. He glanced at Little Martin and was similarly amazed. The reincarnation ripples from the current Little Martin's body were several times greater than the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest. Such a level was already comparable to the previous Great Elder Zhu Li. Where's Little Flame? Lindong's gaze swept around but was unable to find Little Flame's figure. He went into seclusion cultivation ever since he returned and is now attacking the Samsara stage. It should be about time, Little Martin explained. Lindong nodded slightly, feeling rather gratified. The three brothers had unknowingly grown so much. Right, there's good news and bad news from the Eastern Xian region. A grave look flitted across Little Martin's eyes as he looked at Lindong and said in a soft voice. As Little Martin's words rang out, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest watched the smile on Lindong's face slowly recede. In its place was a chilling solemnness. The bad news is that Yuan Gate started a war. Little Martin slowly said, besides Yuan Gate, only 2 of the 7 Eastern Xian region super sects remain. Boom! Killing intent that blotted the sky exploded from Lin Dong's body like a storm, forcibly tearing apart the clouds in the sky. The temperature of the entire Deep Lightning Mountain gradually lowered as countless Four Titans Palace experts all lifted their gazes and looked in the direction of the Great Hall. Which 2 are left? Lin Dong's voice was a little rough and sinister. The killing intent within his eyes gradually showed signs of turning into madness. The good news is that the remaining 2 super sects are Dao Sect and 9 Heaven Supreme Purity Palace. However, their situation is not very encouraging. Lin Dong silently nodded. He closed his eyes and deeply breathed in, before slowly lifting his head. It was a long time later before that indifferent and low voice slowly echoed. Gather the troops and set up the spatial teleportation formation. We are going back. Lin Dong's command was disseminated. Like a war machine, the Four Titans Palace swiftly started to operate. Countless experts gathered in Deep Lightning Mountain waiting for their dispatch orders. On a peak within Deep Lightning Mountain, Lin Dong gazed at the distant sky where over 1,000 figures hovered. Threads of light shot out from their hands and gradually transformed into the silhouette of an enormous formation in the sky. Due to the great distance between the Demon region and the Eastern Xian region, and the fact that Lin Dong was commanding a great number of troops, the spatial teleportation formation was extremely vast. Even though there were as many experts as the clouds in the sky who were part of the Four Titans Palace, it would still take several days to construct such a formation. Great leader, with us creating such a huge disturbance in making preparations to enter the Eastern Xian region, will it make the people of the 4 great Xian regions unhappy? The Heaven Dragon Demon Commander suddenly said from behind Lin Dong. The Demon region and the 4 great Xian regions did not have harmonious relations. It was fine for people from the Demon region to go over from time to time, but with such a huge exodus, it would surely become somewhat troublesome if it drew the combined resistance of the factions from the 4 great Xian regions. Although the power of a single Eastern Xian region could not compare to the Demon region, the combined might of the 4 great Xian regions was not to be underestimated. Since the Eastern Xian region is already in great chaos, they will no longer be able to unite themselves. Little Martin shook his head and said, however, we have practically mobilized everyone this time, causing the forces at headquarters to be greatly reduced. If other factions take advantage of this opportunity, the Golden Ape Demon Commander also opened his mouth to speak. I have already notified the Dragon Tribe and Celestial Demon Martin Tribe. After we leave, they will dispatch experts to help defend Four Titans Palace. Lin Dong said in an indifferent manner. Upon hearing these words, the Heaven Dragon Demon Commander and the rest nodded their heads in relief. With the Dragon Tribe and the Celestial Demon Martin Tribe's help, there was likely no faction in Demon region that would dare to invade the Four Titans Palace. Haha, young brother Lin Dong, your Four Titans Palace is so lively today. Not long after Lin Dong's words faded, a slight distortion appeared in the distant sky. Soon after, 2 figures flew over, flickering as they appeared in front of Lin Dong and the rest. First Elder Zhu Li? Big Brother Liu Qing? Lin Dong was immediately taken aback upon seeing this duo. He hastily welcomed them, smiling as he asked, why have the 2 of you come? After hearing that you intend to return to the Eastern Xian region, tribe leader sent me over to follow you to the Eastern Xian region. First Elder Zhu Li chuckled and said, besides, Ajia was once injured by that Yuan Gate. We cannot possibly act as if nothing has happened. It's been so many years since I've fought with those little kids, I'll make sure to properly entertain them this time. You are our Dragon Tribe's punishment elder, thus our Dragon Tribe will naturally aid you. Liu Qing also nodded and declared. Lin Dong was somewhat touched when he heard this. First Elder Zhu Li and Liu Qing were pinnacle experts who had touched reincarnation. This aid was extremely great. The Dragon Tribe and the Celestial Demon Martin Tribe clearly intended to take the opportunity to do him a favor. Thanks is not needed for such great favors. Lin Dong will remember this. Lin Dong cupped his fist and earnestly said. A great battle was unavoidable when they returned to the Eastern Xian region. Hence, the stronger his forces were, the more at ease Lin Dong would be. 3 years ago, the three brothers had been forced to flee the eastern Xian region like dogs. This time, he would make sure to repay all of these debts. First Elder Zhu Li smiled as he waved his hand. His gaze was somewhat peculiar as it swept across Lin Dong's body. Looks like brother Lin Dong has benefited greatly. As expected of the Devouring Master's inheritance, it has allowed you to directly leapt past the perfect profound death stage and advance to the samsara stage. Hee, same to you. Lin Dong chuckled and said. Given his current power, he could naturally tell that the reincarnation ripples from within Zhu Li's and Liu Qing's bodies had become increasingly powerful. They perhaps only lacked a single step. After taking that final step, they would truly advance to the reincarnation stage. This was clearly bestowed upon them by the Devouring Master. Lin Dong lifted his head and gazed at the enormous spatial teleportation formation in the distant sky. His hands slowly clenched into fists as indescribable feelings surged within his heart. Unknowingly, he had left the eastern Xian region for almost 3 years. When he had left, he was merely a weakling who had yet to even reach the profound life stage. Now, however, he had as many strong subordinates as the clouds in the sky, and had truly risen to the pinnacle of this world. It had been 3 years, yet this difference was akin to the mud on the ground and the clouds in the sky. I wonder how the Great Desolate Tablet is doing. I've already exceeded our 2-year appointment from back then. Lin Dong softly sighed in his heart. He had promised the Great Desolate Tablet to return to the eastern Xian region and eliminate the sealed Yimo King within 2 years. Yet, the promised time had now long passed, causing him to feel worried and guilty. However, he had too many burdens to bear. That miserable scene of fleeing from back then was something that he did not want to experience a second time. Don't worry, although things are not looking good for the Great Desolate Tablet, it has not yet been completely corroded by devil qi. Yang's voice suddenly rang out at this moment. How do you know? Lin Dong was taken aback. Both it and I were created by the same master. I am number 2 on the divine object rankings, while it is number 3. There's nothing strange about being able to sense certain things. Yang lazily said, moreover, have you forgotten? There is still your little girlfriend in Dao sect. She should be slowly awakening and gradually recovering the Ice Master's powers. Others might not be able to sense the Great Desolate Tablet, but she can. Hence, she will absolutely not idly watch the Great Desolate Tablet be corroded by devil qi. The one that the Great Desolate Tablet is suppressing is likely not an ordinary Yimo King, right? Lin Dong suddenly softly asked. He had not known much about the Yimo previously. At that time, every Yimo was an unparalleled existence in his eyes. However, as his strength rose, even the Yimo Kings that once caused him to be overwhelmed with horror now no longer gave him any fear. Hence, when he thought about it again, he could sense that something seemed to be amiss. The Great Desolate Tablet was a powerful item that was number 3 on the divine object rankings. How could a mere ordinary Yimo King be capable of invading it? After all, even the 10th place mysterious divine palace was only corroded because it had sealed numerous Yimo Kings. The Great Desolate Tablet could not be inferior to the mysterious divine palace, right? Yes. Yang nodded as it softly sighed. King-level Yimo can similarly be classified by their strength. From a certain point of view, ordinary Yimo Kings can only be called false kings. False kings? Lin Dong's brows faintly furrowed. It was evident that normal people would never have heard of such a classification. Yes. The true kings are similar to the 10th seat king in strength. Yang continued, the one who was sealed and suppressed under the Great Desolate Tablet is a true king. Its strength is comparable to a peak expert who has passed 2 reincarnation tribulations. 2 reincarnation tribulations. Lin Dong's eyes hardened. No wonder it was able to corrode the Great Desolate Tablet to such a degree. It turns out that the king-level Yimos were not so simple after all. Looks like I'll have to quickly deal with that fellow when we return to the eastern Xian region. Lin Dong softly stated. If a Yimo King with such power was released, it would likely be a disaster. Yes. With your current strength and the power of the 2 ancestral symbols, killing a sealed true Yimo King will not be impossible. Yang replied. Lin Dong nodded. Soon after, he gently exhaled as he muttered, "Now, we will wait for the formation to be complete and for Little Flame to be done." Under the combined efforts of numerous Four Titans Palace experts, the enormous spatial teleportation formation was successfully constructed 5 days later. The spatial undulations it gave off could be clearly felt even 1,000 miles away. On the third day after the spatial teleportation formation was complete, some activity finally appeared in the mountains at the back of the Four Titans Palace. Mountains violently shook as black and white light that seemingly covered the sky surged from one of the mountains into the heavens like a wave. Subsequently, it transformed into a titanic black and white tiger of light that was several tens of thousands of feet large in the sky under the watching gazes of countless experts. Black and white alternated on the light tiger as it lay there while an ancient and imposing aura spread outwards. Immediately, the experts who had the bloodline of the tiger clan within a 10,000 feet radius could not resist and were forced to their knees by this aura. Roar! The black-white light tiger roared at the heavens. The roar shook the mountain forests, and the Yuan power in the area frantically gathered over at this moment. Bang! The mountain peak was finally unable to bear the powerful force. With a final bang, it completely exploded. Shattered rocks filled the sky, and a black-white light figure rapidly rose into the sky. Roar! A tiger's roar brought with it extremely astonishing undulations as it echoed into the distance. The titanic black-white light tiger in the sky transformed into a ray of light at this moment, before being swallowed into the body of that black-white light figure. Black and white light emerged from the figure. From a distance, it looked like a black and white sun with dreadful power. Has he succeeded? Lin Dong gazed at the black-white light figure while a smile of being relieved from a great burden appeared on his face. Looks like the darkness-sent tiger's bloodline had already been successfully refined by Little Flame. The latter had borrowed this power to truly advance to the samsara stage. Big brother. A powerful voice echoed in the sky as a light figure swiftly flew over. Like a metal tower, it landed at Lin Dong's side. When his feet touched the ground, the entire mountain range violently shook for a moment. Good. Lin Dong patted Little Flame's shoulders. Soon after, he faintly smiled and pointed at the enormous spatial teleportation formation in the sky behind them as he softly said, "Know what we are going to do?" "I do." Little Flame gazed at the spatial teleportation formation, a sinister-looking veins immediately crawled out in his eyes. Quickly after, he grinned evilly and replied. Lin Dong turned around and looked to his front, where 8,000 tiger-devouring army troops were silently seated on the plaza. As they breathed, they looked like a giant tiger. Behind Lin Dong were Little Martin, Little Flame, Great Elder Zhu Li, Liu Qing, and the rest. A total of 9 samsara stage super experts stood shoulder to shoulder. Their imposingness seemed to fill the sky. Their gazes were locked onto Lin Dong's body as they waited for him to speak. "Let's go." Lin Dong lifted his head and deeply breathed in a mouthful of fiery hot air. Soon after, cold light exploded from his pitch-black pupils. As his ice-cold voice faded, he had already taken the lead and rushed forward. Behind him, Little Martin and the rest followed, while the nearby 8,000-strong tiger-devouring army roared at the heavens. Like a mass of black clouds, they swarmed towards the spatial teleportation formation. "Activate the formation!" Lin Dong's cold voice rang out. Resplendent and dazzling light exploded from the enormous spatial teleportation formation at this moment and blasted straight into the clouds. Within the dazzling light, Lin Dong's expression was indifferent while flames seemed to dance within those pitch-black eyes. "Old dogs of Yuan Gate, do you still remember those words I said 3 years ago?" This episode ends here.